Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericahealth.com.
Like so many others, who you are is largely a result of your past. We have so many positive and not so positive experiences that we start to doubt ourselves and our place in this world. Let the healing process start now. Welcome to Shift Happens with Karen Weary. When you start to focus on healing from the inside out, you'll learn so much more about your own health, your well-being, and your state of mind. Once you've started on that, the rest gets a little bit easier every day. Now, here is your host, Karen Weary.
Hello and welcome to Shift Happens. I am your host, Karen Weary, licensed marriage and family therapist and breakthrough life coach. Because when you and we work together, you are going to have some huge, phenomenal breakthroughs and make some serious shift happen in your life. And the fact that I also work as a coach means that I can work with you no matter where you are, which is really phenomenal to not be restricted by states and all that good stuff. And I have some bittersweet news because today this is my last show in this format for now anyway. You never know what's going to happen in the future. Wink, wink, hint, hint. But this is my last show for now. And but you can always find me on the social media. Of course, I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I have loaded all these videos, which if you're listening audio, then you don't know there's video, but there is video on my YouTube channel. So you can, put in my name, and I can't name my YouTube channel yet because I don't have enough subscribers. But if you go in and you subscribe, hint, hint, wink, wink, I can go ahead and finally name my YouTube channel. That would be awesome. So I am going to share some pretty cool things today because one of the things that I am doing, I'm working on finishing a book that I started writing 2 years ago. And I'm I pretty much written the whole thing. And, sometimes you need a little kick in the ass to get things finished because then I put it aside for a year at least. And now I am working on it seriously. And it is going to be published this year, sometime between September and November. Which is really exciting. So that's my first book, and it's almost like, putting another child out there in the world, but just in a different way. And during these 2 years, because I've been on Voice America for 2 years, well, a little bit longer because we had the pilot run as well. And I have to say it's been quite exciting and such a beautiful learning experience for myself as well, because I had this amazing opportunity to invite a whole bunch of people that otherwise probably would have never paid me any attention. So some of the big names that I had the honor of talking with and interviewing here on the show is Sandra Yancey of eWomen Network. I had Dr. Bruce Lipton. Oh my gosh, that was phenomenal. That I was able to take and put into 2 different shows because he has a lot of great information, and we were able to snip it and use it in 2 shows here. He is just the sweetest person on top of being so incredibly knowledgeable. And then I had Raven Keys, who does Reiki. She was the first person who was invited into the surgery room by Dr. Oz. And so pretty exciting information out there. Now, and then outside of the big name people, I've just had the opportunity to share this platform with a lot of, incredible people who are inspirational and using their lives and their knowledge and their skills and talents to really help change other people's lives for the better. And whether it's in the financial industry or in the health industry, and many different alternative ways where people they can get out of pain physically and emotionally and spiritually, and get their lives back. Because as we've talked about several times here, when we are in pain, whether it's physically or emotionally, it's really hard to do anything and to show up as the person that you are really meant to be here. And when I was talking about, I'm currently wrapping up and getting this book ready to be published, I had originally called it Ditch That Diet, but then I was talking to my accountability partner for May, and she came up with a title that I absolutely adore because this really nails it. Uh, it's not what you eat, it's what's eating you, because that really is what this is about. It's the book is an inspirational transformation self-help type of book. And I share my personal transformation as well as how I got to work with people and think of how I help people based on my personal experiences, which that's what we're all coming from, right? We're coming from our own personal experiences, and how do we use what we have lived and put it into use in our life. And for me, something that's I find so incredibly rewarding to be able to work with people who are ready and have the courage, because it does take courage to do this work, that are ready to make this happen, these change, these shifts, to release the old garbage that's hanging on and holding them back, and really let it go for good, so that they can show up in the world the way that they were meant to be. And it is the most rewarding thing when you when you sit here and you're seeing people right in front of you begin to blossom, who begin to uh, have have a smile on their face when they've been held down and weighed down by all of their life experiences before, when they start sitting up straight and they're now having eye contact with you where before they wouldn't, where they begin to light up and they share how they're finally having peace and calm, and they can breathe easier. Those are usually the first words that they're saying as we are working through situations that they've been through. And so how did I come about this in the book? And I'll share some excerpts from the book here today in the show as a little teaser. And so when I was little, I lost my dad when I was 5. I lost him as in he passed on. He died. He had heart issues, sadly. And after that, that was the biggest change in my life, because after that, everything changed. And we moved from Houston, Texas to Denmark. So a transcontinental move. And then I was tossed in the classroom, not knowing the language, and just had to figure it out for myself. And then, of course, with that, as often happens, bullying, being teased, all that nonsense. And the part that really got me into the field that I am in now, working with people and helping people grow and develop and nurture themselves, and really is about breaking the intergenerational trauma, because that's what I saw in my own family. And yeah, because when we moved to Denmark, I got to see I have a very tiny family. So we didn't have any family in Texas. So moving to Denmark is where I had a few people in my family. And one was my maternal grandmother, who was the only grandparent that I got to know. Everybody else had passed on. And saw my mother's interactions with her mother. Now, my mother being a full grown adult woman, and she was still terrified of her mother, who was at this time in her 70s and 80s. And that was a really powerful lesson to me, to see how huge of an impact our childhood has, and how powerfully that can hang on to us. And then I saw how my mother not having, any self-esteem whatsoever, and was totally not empowered. She was powered on by pure will and stubbornness. And that can come in handy sometimes. And because outside of that, there was no self-esteem there whatsoever, which is really hard to see someone that you love struggle like that. And that was that I took that on. With everything, moving and not knowing anybody, and having to start all over at that age, and not necessarily being received particularly well, and my not being able to handle that very well. So I took that on. I did not have much self-esteem either. And so a lot of this is also how the book is not all about me. I use examples from my life to show examples of how you don't have to be abused or in a horrible situation in order for life events to have a huge and powerful impact on you, whether it's positive or negative. And that's really the point, because many times people, they are really minimizing and waving off, and diminishing the effects that things that they've been through, whether it's childhood or adulthood, have on how they are feeling now. I can't tell you how many times I have people, new clients, who come to see me, and they say, "I don't know why I'm so aggravated. Why I just get so angry so easily. I just get triggered, and I don't know why." And instantly I know, or people, they'll call and say that they need anger management. Okay. I, I I know within myself that it's not really necessarily anger management, that there's something else that's going on. There's like they have raw nerve endings because of the experiences that they have been through, that when we can heal that, then yeah, we might do a little bit of anger management, skills and techniques and whatnot. But just healing that old wound is the biggest piece that will get you the furthest, quickest. Also, because now you're not fighting yourself all the time, which is the problem, which if you've heard me talk before, you will know that I talk about how events that we have experienced get lodged in our brains and in our bodies dysfunctionally. And that's just how it's stored and continues to come up every time it's triggered. So, although, I'm 52 now, if I have an old emotional wound that I have not done anything with, and it's still hanging out there because I didn't want to deal with it, I just said it's a long time ago. It is what it is. I just need to get over it, pull my big girl panties on and move on, tough it out. Then what is going to happen is every time that I get triggered and something like that comes up, I am going to, even though in my 52-year-old body, I am going to be that 14-year-old girl that was hurt, or the 7-year-old little girl who was being bullied and felt very insignificant. That's the person that's going to be coming up inside of me. And that's the person that you're dealing with. And a lot of people, when I explain this to them and they think about their partner or a friend or whoever it is that they're talking about that they have issues with, then all of a sudden they go, "Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense." Because when you think about how the person behaves, it's like we reverse in age when we are in that state. So, yeah, so when I work with people, I work with people in a very holistic way, because it's a whole domino effect, right? We're not just a mindset, we're not just emotions, we're not just the body. Everything works together. And the more that we can put different pieces together to nurture the whole system, mind, body, spirit, then the quicker we are going to, and the better of an environment we're creating for us to thrive and function and then thrive, I guess. Because really, if when we can get to thrive, that's the best state to be in, right? We can get into flow mode, we can thrive, our our immune systems are these incredible systems that keep us healthy no matter what's going on. It's long as we nurture and build our immune system. And that's one of the pieces that I use, and I'm going to describe in the book as well, of how I do self-love and how you can do self-love with how you take care of your body as well, because our 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 physical body is very much also connected to how we are feeling emotionally. So our gut health, for example, has a big um, a big um, what a factor in our mental health. So when our gut health is not in the balance that it's supposed to be, then guess what? We have that's where the 80 to 90% of our immune system and 80 to 90% of our serotonin is created in our gut. So when the bacteria, the flora in our gut is not where it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be 80% of the good flora and 20% of the bad flora. And that's the perfect balance where everything is in harmony. Then we are creating all the immune system and all the serotonin, which is the neurotransmitter that makes us feel good emotionally. And so, with when you think about that, then why would you not want to take the best care you possibly can of your gut? For one, if just thinking about that one little piece. So that's one of the things that I do. First, I look over what kind of trauma is there, that big T trauma, little T trauma, that we can zero in on and help resolve. And for those people who are open to go the next step and add different kinds of natural supplements that will support your body as well, because another piece, of course, is food. Now there's that saying that says, You are what you eat." Well, not so much. It's the next level that's even more accurate is, you are what you absorb, because the problem with a lot of people is that they're not absorbing all of their food or their supplements. If they're taking, over the counter kind of supplements, vitamins and whatnot, there's all different qualities. You can not spend a lot of money and go get a bottle of vitamins off of a shelf at the grocery store or some other place, but you might not know what kind of quality that you get. And if it's just you're taking it and then you're pooping it out and your body hasn't absorbed anything, then guess what? You just threw all that money out the door. And so I am always looking for something that's going to be of high quality that my body is going to absorb. And when I've had good effects for myself and seen that there's a lot of good effects for other people, then that's what I'm going to recommend to other people. I like to do a lot of research and make sure that this is something that is going to have the best outcome for the most people. So when we come back, I'm going to share some really surprising, shocking for a lot of people statistics of what came out of this huge study, the ACE study that was held by Kaiser Permanente in Southern California from 1995 to 1997. There were two large waves of people that where they collected data that was done on over 17,000 people. It's huge. And what the outcome of that study was. You definitely want to going to come back and hear about that.
You are listening to Shift Happens with Karin Weary. Do you have a question or comment about today's program? If so, we'd love to hear from you. Call in to the live show at 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. Or send an email to karinw@insightscounselingcenter.com. Remember that Karin is spelled Karin. Now, back to Shift Happens.
Hello and welcome back to Shift Happens. I am your host, Karin Weary. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and breakthrough life coach, because when you work with me, we make a lot of breakthroughs so that you can go out and be the person who you really came here to be and really get the most out of your life. And not just that, but create the life that you desire to have, because life is too short. And, we don't know how much time we have here. And why not make the most of it? And so today is actually my last show here on Shift Happens on Voice America. I am working on a book and it's going to be published this year. And it is about the work that I do, as well as my own personal transformation, as how I came about it. And I use my life in examples to demonstrate how and why I do the work that I do. And I actually also have a chapter that one of my clients that went through my own personal research study that I did, and she shared her experience. So she's a phenomenal woman. So I'm excited to share that with you as well. And so when we were just wrapping up the previous segment, I was talking about the ACE study, which was done in there were two waves of data collection through Kaiser Permanente, which is an HMO. They surveyed their HMO members when they came into the clinic, and they got more than 17,000 people to do this, the data and all of this. And I actually did a whole show on this. That was back in March 12th, 2019. So if you want to scroll back over the shows that I've done, you can find it there, March 12th, 2019. So I want to read a quote by Bessel van der Kolk. He is one of my favorite people. Uh, and he said, as the ACE study has shown, child abuse and neglect is the single most preventable cause of mental illness, the single most common cause of drug and alcohol abuse, and a significant contributor to leading causes of death such as diabetes, heart disease, cancer, stroke, and suicide, which is quite phenomenal. And this is why I talk about how pertinent this work is to do when people, there's still somewhat of a stigma out there about going to counseling, as in, oh, you're crazy if you're going, that means that there's something seriously wrong with you. But no, no, not at all. I think I so admire people that come and seek out help, because one, obviously you're in a place where you're recognizing that you're struggling a little bit, and why should you struggle on your own? It's kind of like if you have a toothache and you don't want to go to the dentist because you just don't want to deal with it. You're crazy if you go to the dentist, right? And you're just gonna try to deal with it yourself. But no, you need professional help sometimes. And also somebody who, first of all, doesn't have an agenda in your life, and also has a lot of training and experience in working with people, so that you get real tools. And the way that I work with people to resolve the trauma is a way that it's not about talking you through things. It's not about using logic. It's really a way to work with the brain that people get to feel different. It's not just that in your head this happened a long time ago, but we're getting everything back on board and in alignment so that your body also recognizes, oh, this thing is over. We're not re-experiencing it every time we get triggered. So some of the things that came out of the ACE study is the ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, is that what was it they said? Like 86% of the population have at least one of the adverse childhood experiences, which, and each experience uh, leads or is 1 point. And so when you start adding things up. And so some of the adverse experiences are, for example, your parents get divorced, or there is a death in the family. A parent has a mental health illness, or a parent has alcoholism, or uses drugs, or has a physical handicap. There's a big move. Some of these things. It leads to what they found was that it led to social and emotional and cognitive impairments in a lot of people, adoption of health risk behaviors, uh, disease, disability, and social problems, as well as early death. People uh, can live as much as 20 years less, that they die 20 years earlier than expected when they have four or more of these child adverse experiences. Some of the other numbers that came was smoking is one of the effects, 2.2, obesity 1.6%, or 1.6 times higher levels of obesity. Let's see, depression, 4.6 times higher level of that. Suicidal gesture, 12.2. Alcoholism, 7.4. Illicit drugs, 4.7. Injectable drugs, 10.3. And sexual promiscuity, 3.2. And so this is quite significant, and just goes to show how pertinent those initial years are in our life. And the thing that I was sharing was that I wanted to make a break in this intergenerational thing we had going on. So let me go ahead and read an excerpt of t- chapter 2 in my book. The chapter is called Turning Challenges into Opportunities. Daddy, 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 I yelled as I stormed through the house to meet him. I was so excited that he was home. I loved my daddy so much, and he'd been at work all day long. He made it to the end of our long driveway and parked the car by the garage and opened his door. He laughed at the sight of me storming out of the house and prepared himself to catch me as I jumped into his lap before he had a chance to get out of the car, and hugged him hard. He hugged me back and kissed me, happy to be greeted in this manner. It seemed like forever since I last saw him, and getting lost in his big, strong arms and nestling my head into his neck felt so soothing to my soul. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to read here on my computer. The most powerful memory I have of my dad was when he pulled me into him on the couch and told me that all human beings die one day. He obviously knew that he was not going to live much longer and was trying to prepare me for his upcoming death without telling me directly that he was dying. I remember the shock that went through my whole entire system. I froze. My brain stopped in its tracks. I shut down emotionally. My whole world shattered at that news. All I remember from that scene was walking like a zombie over to my mom, who was sewing on her sewing machine. She had no idea what my dad had just told me. She looked over at me as I sidled up beside her, looking for comfort, now that my dad had told me something that blew my little 5-year-old mind. She saw that something was terribly wrong with me and asked, "What happened?" I was speechless. I couldn't answer her. Normally, I would go to my dad for comfort. But I was trying to make sense of the incomprehensible he had just told me about. So now I needed my mom for a moment to try to make some sense of my world again and bring back normalcy. So this is part of, you know, this is something that a lot of kids who lose their parent when they're that young don't necessarily remember a lot. But for some reason, I remember a lot of my childhood, which I'm very happy that I do remember because I treasure those memories very much, and it's all a big part of who I am and how I became who I am. And it's also one of the reasons why I am such a big proponent of dads, because dads are really important in kids' lives. And of course, as long as it isn't an abusive relationship, of course, that always goes without saying. But there are many times in divorces, for example, probably mostly in divorces, where there's so much fighting going on, and the adults in the divorces, they get so caught up in their own anger and bitterness at the other person that they use the kids many times in order to hurt the other parent. And in reality, what you're really doing, yeah, you may be hurting the other parent, but you're hurting the children, which is uh, probably, hopefully not what you intend. I certainly hope not. But it's something that is really a powerful effect. And when I work with people, I have a lot of people who have gone through tremendous chaos in their childhood with parents who just couldn't pull themselves together. Whether it was drugs or alcohol or abuse and neglect and gangs and violence and all kinds of things. And while they're here and are able to function very well and make good money and have great careers and this, that, and the other, they're they're functioning at a level where it takes a lot of work for them to really have uh, quality life emotionally. And so when you can do whatever you can to provide the best environment for your kids, you are giving them such a gift. You get over yourself, look at this child or these children, and look in their little faces and see what's best for them. Not as in give them whatever they want because you feel guilty. No, give them good boundaries, make them earn what they need to get so that they can be productive, good people that other people want to be around rather than entitled little brats. I do not like entitled little brats. And, and then the other thing that happens is when you do that, then many times I've seen too many times where grandparents end up raising their grandchildren because they raised kids that they enabled and created entitled grown-ups, and who don't want to raise their own kids or are incapable because as parents, they never made their kids do the things that you have to learn how to do to be a human being. So, so as part of this whole repertoire, one of the things, as you saw in the list that I was reading, was that obesity is one of the things also that many times comes out of the adverse childhood experiences, whether it was because there's a lot of especially women who carry extra weight that when they start losing some of the weight, that they start feeling uncomfortable because now maybe they're noticing that men are paying attention to them and that makes them feel uncomfortable. And many times there has been some sort of um, uh, some sort of trauma with men, whether it's in a previous relationship or a childhood sexual abuse experience that they have been through, and that's where many times that self-sabotage will come in. And many times it's that not loving. Well, okay, we loving can many times be a step too far, but even liking yourself and in some subtle hidden way of punishing yourself. And it that happens a lot when it comes to weight. And this is where we often can get into that whole yo-yo diet roller coaster effect. And because one of the things that I'm talking about in this book also is that I noticed for myself that when I started making huge life changes that put me more and more into alignment with who I am and what I believe, that is where I I lost my addiction to sugar. And I'll read in the next segment another excerpt where I talk about the sugar addiction, because that is no joke. That is the real thing. And I can tell you what, I felt sometimes a little bit like a heroin or cocaine addict when it came to sugar, which in fact, the same area of the brain lights up for sugar that it does for cocaine, which is insane, right? And so this is another piece where that many times also with the food, where that comes in, that is something that it becomes used as a way to control or to reward, or when I'm bored. And we can get into emotional eating very easily, in addition to the fact that the way that our food is produced here, at least in the US for sure, where they had the combination of fat, sugar, and salt. That combination is incredibly addictive, and it's done on purpose. So we are actually addicted many times to processed foods, which the more processed it is, the worse it is for you. The longer the shelf life on the food, the shorter is your shelf life. um, so we are going to come back after these couple of messages, and I'm going to read another excerpt out of my book. It's not what you eat, it's what's eating you, that is getting ready to be published this fall, somewhere between September and October. So you will be hearing more about it. Make sure that you reach out to me, because I will have some fun things surrounding that, as well as if you want to learn about the program that I've created that really creates that huge transformation for you from wherever you are now, to get unstuck if you're feeling stuck in either your weight, your life, your relationships, and get to the life that you want to design. And we can do that in much shorter time than you would imagine. So come on back after these couple of messages and hear another excerpt of the book, as well as how you can reach me, as well as the cherry on the icing, because there's another piece that comes at the very end that is super phenomenal, and it has to do with taking charge of your financial piece as well.
You are listening to Shift Happens with Karin Weary. Do you have a question or comment about today's program? If so, we'd love to hear from you. Call in to the live show at 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. Or send an email to karinw@insightscounselingcenter.com. Remember that Karin is spelled Karin. Now, back to Shift Happens.
Hello and welcome back to Shift Happens. I am your host, Karen Weary, licensed marriage and family therapist and breakthrough life coach. In order to reach me to find out more about how can you work with me to create the life of your dreams, make breakthroughs, and really be able to uh, make a lifestyle change. And then you can reach me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on my website, which is down for now, but at least you can reach me through the website still. We need to make a couple of changes, which is at insightscounselingcenter.com. And you can email me at Karin W, KARINW, at insightscounselingcenter.com. So let me share another excerpt of the book that I'm writing. It's Not What You Eat, It's What's Eating You. This is out of chapter 2, where I am talking a little bit about the sugar addiction that came about. This starts off with talking about my mom, how she turned this into something else. So here we go. Instead, when she escaped her childhood home, she ate whatever she wanted, and she loved sugar. She always had chocolate by her bed, which she would eat when she had a hard time falling asleep at night. There was always candy stored strategically around the house, like in a drawer by the TV where she would sit, in the kitchen drawer, and in the closet in her bedroom. I knew all of the hiding spots. Sugar filled the emotional voids and lit up the brain with a sweet rush while our addiction steadily grew. Studies have shown how sugar lights up the same area of the brain as cocaine does. And in studies where they gave rats the option to choose sugar or cocaine after they made the rats addicted to cocaine, guess what they chose? Sugar. Unbelievable, isn't it? Back in the 80s, we were told that fat was the enemy. I became health conscious early on in my teens and would read up on how to stay healthy in magazines. Sugar was innocent, I thought, and had no regard for how much sugar I took in. Heck, when we were still living in the US, my mom let me put 3 large spoonfuls of sugar in my hot tea. I would proceed to not stir the sugar. Nope. I would let it sink to the bottom and then scrape the sugar off the bottom of the cup with the spoon and eat the sugar. When I had eaten all of that, I would put some more sugar in my tea and do the same thing all over again. I'm not sure how many times my mother let me do this, but at some point she would eventually put her foot down and tell me that was enough. Another trick my mom taught me was to cut a hole at the top of an orange with the peel still on and then push 3 or 4 sugar cubes into the hole and then squeeze the juice into your mouth with the added sugar in the orange, mind you. Yeah, that was my childhood. Sugar, sugar, sugar. So it was quite a sweet childhood. And of course, that was not so good. And fortunately, when much later, it took a while before I found out really how bad sugar was. I was at least maybe in my late 20s or so when I finally discovered that. And, I had been well, I knew that it was bad, but I had been starting to eliminate and reduce sugar. But then, now I've discovered that there are ways of getting sweeteners like stevia. That's what I like, is my go-to, because it took me a little while to get used to the taste. But what I really like about stevia that is that it doesn't raise your blood glucose levels. And that's really important because when we're raising our blood glucose levels, wow, that's a hard word to say, then we're really putting ourselves in danger of giving ourselves diabetes, which guess what? Surprise, surprise, my mother gave herself diabetes. I wasn't supposed to know that, but I did. I found out. And she was fortunately able to manage it with medicine. She never had to go to, giving herself injections and all that. But there were a lot of people, because she was legally blind. She became legally blind because of a genetic disorder in her eyes. But she was part of this organization that was called the Blind Association, where of course a number of the people who were in the Blind Association had become blind because of diabetes. So it's a horrible, horrible disease to have. And unless you have diabetes 1, it is preventable. Yeah, I've shared on the show before how for a while, was in the pre-diabetic range, maybe 3 years ago or whatever, when I was doing my physical and the blood work came out that I was in the pre-diabetic range, and I was like, "Oh, hell no, we are not going down that road." And so I was eating pretty good then, but I changed up some more things, and as well as, the supplements that I take, which are very, high quality supplements that are very easily absorbed. The body absorbs 90 to 95% of it because it's in a powder form. They pour water in, so it becomes your body's absorbing it very easily, and you don't deal with all the fillers and all that other stuff that's in a lot of other supplements. So, and a lot of them, they also help balance out your blood glucose levels, among the other wonderful things that they do. So, high antioxidant, reducing inflammation by 52%, all kinds of wonderful things, because those are the things that we really begin to struggle with, especially as we get older, and especially depending on what kind of food that we eat. So, so yeah, and the last piece that comes along with, as we resolve the trauma, which many times does not take a long time with the modality that I use, because I use the modality that really helps your brain um, flush this stuff out, and so that it's integrated properly and you no longer get triggered. So now we don't have all of those negative beliefs that keep tripping you up, that keep you caught up in the knee jerk reactions that are self sabotaging. So we got that cleared out. And when we also go to more of a healthy eating plan, because we get you set up with whatever plan that fits your goals, and this is eating real food, it's just a matter of how to eat. And what kinds of foods, and how to get to the goal that you want, because this is a lifestyle transition. This is not a diet. And, you know, add some natural, high quality, like I said, supplements that are going to support your body to do what it is that you need to do. This is part of my regimen that I use in order to love on me. And so that when I love on me, I am able to again be the best me that I can be. And the funny thing is that it seems as though the older that I get, the healthier I am. Because I used to, growing up and into my 20s, I would get colds 2, 3 times a year, every year. I wouldn't really get other things, but I would for sure. And then, sore throat, I'd get laryngitis, lose my voice. A couple times got some, I don't know, lung stuff, probably was bronchitis, I don't know. Um, didn't go to the doctor. Why would I do that? So, so, yeah, but I never get colds. I never get sick. I don't have headaches. I don't have aches and pains, all of that. And all of that is also, of course, if you heard me talk lately, I've been talking about frequency therapy. I've added that in the last year, which is phenomenal. That really keeps my bioenergetic in harmony, and my cells all back in homeostasis, so that they can do the job, my cells can do the job that they're designed to do. So it's a beautiful thing. And then the last piece is the financial piece. And this was something that I was able to implement in my own life here recently. And let me tell you what, from the time that we were getting ready to use the system, we were sitting there at the dinner table just going, what are we going to do? How are we going to manage our bills and whatnot? And 2 hours later, when we had entered everything into the system, we were looking at each other with starry eyes, so excited because all of a sudden we saw that we're going to be paid off all of our debts. That's 3 mortgages and some credit cards, and, in 9 years, which is mind-blowing because we're getting ready to close on a house in 2 weeks. In 1 week, 2 weeks, something like that, week and a half. And so it's a brand new mortgage that's included in there as well. So this system is just absolutely phenomenal because it is putting every possible way that it can into your pocket so that you are not going to be stuck in paying, hundreds of thousands of dollars of mortgage that's just interest, where, so that you can get to a place where you can begin to build wealth. And when you have that, you have freedom. That's what this is all about. Because when you have freedom, you can think for yourself, you have time and energy to be innovative. And guess what? When you are being innovative and you have freedom to think and time, then you can go out there and shine your beautiful inner light. I love you all. Thank you for being here and listening. And I'll be back somewhere